Call to order the September meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. It is 4:08, President Mark Leckman, Chair.
John Farrar.
Anthony Antico.
Diane Doyle.
Thank you. First order of business, let's review the minutes of the August 26th meeting. Thank you, Diane, for those. Just a quick amendment, the classification meeting scheduled for the 26th is still on, but we have moved it from 10 to 11 a.m. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Yep.
Thoughts? My only recommendation is, I thought we may have discussed this on the phone, but I'd like to play with the language in the number 7, other business. The sentence that starts that Mark explained at the BOS.
I thought we did change that.
I thought there was different language we used.
You know what? I'm wondering if this was the,
It may have been the original.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I recommended
okay.
a slight changing of or softening of the language here. So let's convene on that after the meeting and see if we can get that cleared
On
up.
second thought, this looks like the original.
That's what I'm saying.
I just.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this might have been the one that I hung up as being sent, but I think we've made subsequent changes.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So do we want to,
Let's dispense with acceptance of the minutes. Do we need to rewrite some of number 7?
well, it may have already have been revised because you both piped in with
Right,
changes, so.
Right, but
we
because we
wanna-
don't have it in front of us.
Right, do we wanna table this until next meeting?
Let's table this,
Okay.
unless anyone has another suggestion. Let's table the acceptance of
My
the minutes,
apologies.
no problem.
Alright.
Okay. Any other suggested changes, edits to the?
I know I did go and change them.
Yeah, okay.
So it's probably just that I didn't put the current.
No
copy.
problem. No problem. Okay. Employee issues, John Lucy is not able to make it, although he did provide us with some of the information we were looking for relative to Corey. We'll get to that in a little bit. Diane, I'm not aware of any other employee issues.
No.
Personnel actions and job vacancies. No, nothing new there. No discrimination and or ethics issues, safety issues we'll leave to John. Other business, let's skip down to manager's letter, town administrator.
So I had worked off of the draft that John had provided,
Right,
and I have not had a chance to review that with Tracy. I got back on the 12th.
Okay.
She was out 3 days last week.
okay,
So I'd like to recommend, tabling that to the next meeting.
okay,
In anticipation of next meeting's getting a final copy out to everyone.
okay.
to review.
And perhaps we could take the opportunity on, is it Wednesday, Thursday, it's Thursday, when we're with Tracy in the subcommittee.
Yep.
To discuss that a little bit, just to help prepare for the next meeting.
Yep.
Do you wanna share with
Yes.
the board what John's update is relative to the Corey process?
So John sent an email that said, regarding the criminal background access, I confirm that the police department is prohibited from disseminating any Corey information to any entity except another registered law enforcement agency. However, a municipality may register as an organization and delegate a representative as its Corey authority. We should talk about this further and possibly include Tracy. This is a process that starts with following link, and I actually went up on the link that he gave me. It basically is just designating someone and having them go through the process of registering. Subsequent, prior to this email coming out today, I had also spoke with Maggie Malley, who's at the Council on Aging, and she is Corey certified.
Oh, she is, okay, great.
So she tells me that she keeps up with her certification and she runs a Corey on anyone that's a volunteer that's going out to the elderly.
Great,
So my only question would be for all other positions, including the library, my understanding is that the library is not Cory certified. So any other positions that are on, we should just, I think, complete the process and decide whether we should have someone here.
Right. Was there any discussion of whether she would be able or willing to act as the Cory representative for other departments? Or-
I haven't had that conversation with her.
Okay, that's something maybe we
So
could discuss.
I think we need to kind of touch base with Tracy as
Right.
well, yeah.
Right, yeah, I think it might be, you know, if we had one or two Cory certified personnel sitting outside of the PD that could, you know, I mean, I don't imagine that there are many Cory requirements in the course of a year. So to the extent that one or two people might be able to serve as the Cory administrator for multiple departments within the town.
Yeah, so the only positions that would be necessary for Cory are those people that are interfacing with probably the elderly and
And children,
the children. In terms of our,
so it's just COA and library, you think?
yeah, I might.
Yeah.
I can't-
What about, I'm just thinking out loud here, you know, recreation committees,
What about any new hires? Man,
I
does the
think-
Cory business apply?
I don't believe so. I would think that the vast majority of positions in town would not require Cory certification.
That's an interesting question.
I
What,
think
because you're working in an area where you can, what, I mean,
Interface with maybe a,
Yeah, where I think the nature of the role requires you to be in constant or frequent contact with children and or the elderly, or in the case of
vulnerable
the
population.
vulnerable population, so.
we're, right, but on, for the Council of Aging people, for example,
Right.
library people, you know, I can see that.
Yeah.
But what about, you know, what about any hire by the town of Newbury?
Mhm.
Doesn't everyone have to take past the Cory?
No.
I believe so.
Well,
I don't
you
think
don't,
that's the case.
you're not confusing every employee being certified, just every person having a Cory report.
I'm not talking about certification, I'm
Yeah.
talking about is, wow.
No, I think the Cory process is specific to those people whose job responsibilities include significant interaction with
With vulnerable
underage,
populations.
vulnerable populations, underage, the elderly. I believe it's unique to those roles.
Mm.
Quite sure of that. And that's probably why, you know, the COA has had somebody Cory certified all these years. The library should have, but doesn't. And so we'll have to work through that. Okay,
I think it's worth just a final conversation with Tracy.
yeah, we can do that on Wednesday as well.
But let me ask you, so the same, every one of the library employees have taken and passed the Cory analysis, right?
So I had asked that,
Assuming,
I had asked that question a while ago, and my understanding from the current library director is that everyone that is currently working has a Cory, but I have not seen them, so
we will effort that.
Well, I
So
would think, I
that's
would
why
think
this
so.
has been brought up. I
Yeah.
thought this, I've been bringing this up for several years,
Yeah.
just,
Well, if the deputy said that their restriction under the rules is only to share with other departments, what if a Cory report comes up and it's negative? How does that transfer to powers to be in Newbury? Whom among the administrators and selectmen who are making judgments on hiring and firing, how many people make actual hiring decisions? All department heads or just Tracy?
I think it's ultimately Tracy's responsibility.
Okay, so if some pops up in the Cory report, she needs to be on their checklist.
Is
And
that,
your sense is she is currently not.
I only think it's from the standpoint of the people that are dealing in those positions.
Yeah,
It's
again,
been-
I
It's been left up to those departments. So I would think it would be those departments' responsibility to bring it to her attention through the interview process. There's some loose ends here that clearly we need to,
Okay.
we
So
need
it
to
should be,
address.
it should be a red flag that may prohibit or exempt someone from the hiring process to begin with.
Yeah.
They never become an employee.
Exactly.
But to the point that we're making about, you know, is it possible that somebody should have been Cory but it hasn't been yet, that's something we need to get to immediately, so.
may I ask, where is the specific Cory report where's it maintained? in the individual employee file,
My understanding, it can't be maintained in the current employee file, it has to be under a separate file.
under whose supervision?
I believe it's the.
The
personnel-
certifier?
The personnel director, I would think, or the certifier, probably the certifier.
This is all
See,
really
this
up
is
in
why
the
we,
air.
again, John was supposed to speak to this when he has more knowledge being Corey certified, you know, working with this in the PD. Some of these questions he could probably answer. I don't have the answers to this.
Let's table it until, get
That's
John
good.
in the room in the interim. Tony, Diane and I can have this conversation with Tracy to have a little bit more detail when we see her on at this subcommittee meeting over the week, so, okay. Query update. Non-exempt weather closing policy. I did take the opportunity before I left town to go back to the individual who was good enough to bring to my attention a couple months ago the fact that this is still percolating around town. And that's the way I would describe it, as percolating, nothing formal has been brought to my attention, somebody just wanted to make me aware of the fact that there is still some feelings that exist regarding this policy. I've gone back to that individual and let that person know that we did, at their request, take the opportunity to discuss it at our last meeting, and that we've decided to leave the policy as is, especially given what we think was the appropriate change in the original language, where we allowed both the manager of the department and the individual to work together with the town administrator to allow for people to have a fairly extended period of time during which they can make up the occasional lost hours that might come from closings. And that in combination with the fact that something like this can't be taken out of context, we need to look at the entire body of the personnel policy and the benefits that are offered and the generosity that the town gives its employee population in other areas. And based on those factors, I think it's safe to say that the HR board feels good about this language change. And we have decided as of last month that we do not need to take it any further. So I brought that back to the individual, who in turn said that they would in fact pass that along to appropriate people. And I said we would welcome the opportunity to have any employee come to this meeting to address it further. You know, we can continue to discuss it. That's what we're here for. Any concerns, any complaints. So to the extent that anyone wants to take it further, they know that we're available. Okay? And that brings us to the sick pool bank. I keep realizing I'm using the wrong language here. It's really a sick day pool or a sick day bank. Use the right term going forward. To take the opportunity to make a number of calls to towns of our size and type nearby. And not unexpectedly, it's all over the lot. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the town of Wenham's that we looked at last year. I did ask them to send me again the most recent copy. This is as of May of 2018. It's probably what we've already looked at. I did speak to Nikki Roebuck, who is the executive assistant to the town administrator, who sent me this. And as expected, she said that while they do have a policy in place, it is used very infrequently. And when I say use, I mean it's very infrequent that somebody comes looking for a donation from the sick day bank, but they have chosen to put this in place. It speaks for itself. She said that she's not aware of any significant problems or challenges with the bookkeeping for this, if you will. But again, she's not the one who administers it. I was not able to speak directly to the TA, town administrator on it, but his assistant. And so she did confirm that the town of Wenham still has it. What she did tell me is that, let me make sure I get the right time down here. I believe that the, let me just check the email I got from her. She did mention one other thing which I thought was interesting, and John might find this interesting as well. The board will also be adopting an update to this policy which specifies the addition of representatives from the police union and the ASFCME, which I assume
Is probably the.
Yes.
Absolutely.
DPW, okay. They have two departments that work under the auspices of a contract, as we do. And both of those departments have voted to work under this sick day bank or sick day pool policy as well. So now all employees of the town, both non-union and union, will fall under the jurisdiction of this. I thought that was interesting. So that's it, as we're aware of. I spoke with the town administrator in Essex, who also functions as the personnel officer in Essex, Brendan Zabriskie. Very nice conversation. He said that they have in the past looked long and hard at the prospect of creating policy and found it to be too cumbersome. Had some of the same questions and concerns that we brought up over the last few months. That combined with the fact that in Essex, employees can accumulate up to 1,200 hours of sick time, which I think is more than ours. Ours is 990, is it? 960. And so he felt secure that that given the ability of the employees to accumulate up to 1,200 hours, he chose not to move forward with the research on the adoption of a sick bank. Sick day pool. So that's Essex. I spoke to Deborah Egan. I spoke to Deborah Egan, who's the town administrator in Raleigh, and I exchanged 3 calls. She made it very clear in a voicemail that they do not have any such policy. There is no intention to create a policy like that. I've got a call into the director of HR in Salisbury, James Ryan, which is the largest town that I'll reach out to. I have not heard back from him yet. I've got a message into Ann Jim, I think her last name is, who's the town accountant responsible for personnel administration in Merrimack. Not heard back from her. I also sent an email to Devin Williams, who's my contact at MMA. She's great. She's helped me on numerous occasions in the past. She is senior membership services coordinator. And anytime I have a question about the creation of policies or what is NMA's policy on or guidance on a particular policy, she's fairly quick to respond. I've not heard back from her. I spoke with Angus Jennings, the town manager at West Newbury. He also put me in touch with Laurie. I'm sorry I did not have a pronunciation of her last name.
Ziviak.
Thank you. Town accountant. Good buddy, yes?
No, I totally go there.
Peter.
Yeah.
Okay. They have, this is interesting. They have had something like this on the books, but much less formal than we were contemplating for many years. Angus certainly did his role for a year or so, I believe. He said in his year there's not been any formal request for it, but he's aware of a couple of requests for donations that have been made over the years. But what I thought was very interesting about a conversation with him is that they do not have a formal policy on it, so that there is no bookkeeping involved, there is no administration involved, quarter to quarter, year to year. What they do is whenever they have an employee in their population who is dealing with, for lack of a better term, catastrophic illness, direct or family, that someone in the town, he didn't say who, someone in the town would send an email to all the employees asking at that point if any employee would be willing to donate hours or donate days from their accumulation to help this individual. And some choose to do so, some don't. Whatever is volunteered goes to that individual. So they do not keep a balance. She said, in most cases, there is no balance. There is no account that has sick days accumulated. But currently there is, because a long-term employee of the town, upon his retirement or her retirement, donated hours on their own, not because of a policy, but just donated. I think Laurie said a couple of hundred hours. So they now have a balance that's available, but it's not on the basis of every quarter or every year. If you're in the program, you're required to donate a day or 2 days or 12
It's
hours.
a volunteer program.
Strictly volunteer, and
But it sounds like it's working, it can work that way.
it can work apparently, yeah. And so that's an opportunity to think about something other than the challenges of creating a policy. And just do it strictly on an as-needed basis. Again, it would require some administration, I would imagine, but my guess is it would not be nearly as time-consuming or as cumbersome as, having 27 employees who every year are required to, and somebody needs to account for that. So, that's something that I hadn't anticipated coming our way, but apparently it's working in West Newbury. I can certainly get more details.
How in depth is Wenham's template right there?
Can I just speak to the West Newbury situation? So when a person retires from Newbury, those sick hours are not available, so they don't get paid out for them.
Okay.
So, and I believe John's feeling on that would be that you don't own your sick, it's
Yeah.
available for you, but it's not a benefit.
Right.
And the town doesn't have to accrue for those when someone leaves, they don't have to
Understood.
resort to liability.
Yeah, again, I think she threw in the fact that this individual had donated his hours, which is allowable in that town, as an afterthought. Most of the conversation was around the fact that there is not a list of people who is required to donate into a pool every year or every quarter. That, on the rare occasion that it's needed, an email goes out, and if John or Bill or Susan or Sam would like to donate, if the town allows them to donate hours, and that's a secondary issue. If the town allows them to donate hours, it is donated on an as-needed basis directly to that individual. So there is no accounting for it, other than the fact that those hours are then stripped away from that person's.
The 960 you were discussing, that's the cap that any employee of the town has.
Correct.
With the exception of the police department, they accrue up to 1,440 hours, I believe.
Okay.
And that's throughout employment, but when they depart, when they retire, it stops. It's use it or lose it.
Right.
So it would still require the town to adopt some loose regulation relative to, at some point in time, can your sick days be donated to somebody else? If the answer to that is yes, then it's donated on an as-needed basis. It does not have to be accounted for. A pool does not have to accumulate. So that strips away maybe much, if not all of the challenge. There may still be some agita associated with it. I'm sure there would be. But that's another way to skin the cat.
Does anyone know what the preponderance of the employees would think, or was this issue ever raised to them in the past? Have you heard of a sick bank kind of a thing? If that were available, would you participate in it? Do you think it's a good idea?
We've had two situations. One was an employee who did fortunately have an optional long-term disability policy, and she was able to use her available sick time and then went on the disability policy. I came in 2010, and my understanding was there was an individual in the PD that had a health issue, and this sort of had been raised, and I think they did it as an ad hoc.
Yeah.
But that was prior to 2010. So we've only had one situation in the last 10 years that there would have been potential for it, but the person had a long-term disability policy and available sick time to carry them to that point.
So I guess we're left with a couple of key questions that we can certainly address again to the Board of Selectmen, if we choose to. One is, what is the appetite in the town of Newbury to create some type of mechanism whereby an individual can donate days? If the answer to that is yes, then we decide, is there enough of a push for it to work on creating something as simple or as complex as it needs to be. But if there is no appetite, by the Board of Selectmen, and I would think it's their call, in a case like this.
Mm.
For policy.
Policy, yeah. So if there is no appetite, and I'm not suggesting there is or isn't, but, if there's no appetite, board, to create a mechanism whereby this is possible, then it maybe becomes a moot point. So,
If I may just ask, what is the, it's part of an employee benefit, right? But I'm looking at, in my own mind, if that benefit is directly coming to me, would I have a right to assign that?
But that's John Lucy's point.
Well, but again, is it I know, and I don't, whatever, is it assignable? And all kinds of things in this world are, but if it belongs in some way to the town, then that you get it when you've earned it, you've gone through, so is there any ownership or controlling interest in somebody's sick days, other than the individual who has them? I mean, so if that's the case, then it's, let me, dig into my own piggy bank.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, here are 5 or 6 days, here's 5 days for you.
what I did not ask,
No.
and perhaps I should have, is, the towns that have, like,
Big
take
account.
Wenham. Wenham's the only one of the 7 towns that I've reached out to so far who has produced an actual policy. My assumption is that they did that research. Now, again, I don't know if it's town by town, I don't know if it's an insurance issue, John, you may want to speak to this. Who gets to decide whether a sick day is assignable,
Mm.
is transferable? Is that a town administration issue?
Would it be town council? We have someone on town council that has the HR, who
Yeah.
helped us with our,
Right,
that might be,
that's something we may want to address
we
first,
just wanna do that first.
yeah, before we even get.
That's a
into the
basic
rest.
question.
Is it all of that strictly for Wenham?
This?
Yes.
Yeah, this is one.
May I take a quick
Please.
look? And we offer them short-term disability, and we offer them augment long-term disability.
It's
And
an
all of the-
optional
all-
insurance that
and the-
they, yep,
The waiting periods are clearly in sync. So as the short-term expires, the long-term triggers. The more difficult question of 6 days is the definition of disability. If somebody is disabled under short-term, it's in the policy. It's very specific, it's very delineated. And long-term disability is either your occupation or substantial and under the care of physicians. Do we have a UROC LTD? In other words, your occupation, or is it a more general contract?
it's more general.
Okay, UROC would be for town administrator, and department heads perhaps only. You'd have 2 classes of LTD. The question under this is, to Tony's question is, who owns it? Who gets to determine when it is assignable? May you and can you? And the element would be, who's to determine on the other end, the person in receipt, whether or not they are truly disabled sufficient to get extended benefit. That's a hairy question.
Well,
That's what
exactly
John
my-
Lucy's
that was my
afraid
point.
of.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was my point.
I was curious whether they determine when somebody may and when somebody can. If they can, through town council, but then may they, it all comes down to whether or not the other person is sufficiently disabled to receive the benefit that's coming from another person, even their own. What constitutes a sick day qualification?
You have to be out for 3 consecutive days and provide a doctor's note. If you're taking
doctor's
1 or
note.
2 days here and there and you're calling in saying you're sick,
Yeah.
it's on the honor system. If you're out for 3 consecutive days or more, you have to provide a doctor's note.
So again, I think even with a simple solution that we talked about in West Newbury, my guess is they must have gotten some clearance from town council that's permissible. So I think you make a good point, Diane. Why don't we, when we talk to Tracy on Wednesday, why don't we ask the chief at that of the partner at Mead, tell him who's her name escapes me at the moment.
Kate,
Kate Federoff, yeah. My guess is this will not be the first time Kate's dealt with this issue. So let's table it unless you folks have other thoughts on it.
No,
We'll talk to town council first to see if it's
Right.
even worthy of bringing forward.
No, I had gone, I had some time and I went, did a little additional research from, just on the internet, wrote it, and it seems like everyone and their uncle has a program, schools, colleges, and, et cetera. Some extensive, some, fairly short.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And sometimes it's generated through the unions, like many schools have it, just a school system, so. But that ad hoc approach seems workable.
Well, of those that I've reached so far, we've got 1 formal policy, 2 no interest in creating a policy, 1 a very loosely defined, really ill-defined, I wouldn't even call it a policy. Yeah, I think they said it represents less than a paragraph in their,
Well, that
in their handbook.
Wouldn't that in itself be a policy? We in this town, we have an ad hoc.
I guess.
Oh, why not?
But not
But not.
not the way we were considering it, so. All right, so we'll talk to Tracy, before, after the subcommittee meeting and ask her to have a quick conversation with Kate Federoff, at town council's office, to get some guidance from them and then decide whether we wanna move forward with discussing with the board of selectmen.
This last page, sick leave bank committee, reads of enormous subjectivity. And that's what John's afraid of.
Right. As am I.
Yeah, as just a finance director that,
we wanna touch that?
yeah, exactly. In other words, you need to determine, you have the right to refuse a request and you have to meet all the criteria that comes with it, highly subjective.
Refuse a request from, I missed that.
The applicant has abused in the past, has not yet exhausted accumulated sick leave, has made previous granted applications, deemed excessive, denying application exists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, every condition in the past, and that's in the committee of finance director, administrator, and 1 non-union employee have to sit in determination, they have to sit in judgment. And it is an ad hoc basis, it's totally voluntary as you go in, it caps it at 200 and then they close the bank, et cetera, et cetera. This is, I mean, they've thought it out and I would love to get a copy of this. And I have a dear,
copy.
okay, I have a dear friend who is on the finance committee at Manchester, and I'll call him tonight and ask him if they have one.
I think it's, given what limited research I've done, I think it's reasonable to assume that if we reach out to 20 communities,
Yeah.
it will likely be the same. That 12 will say, we've thought about it and have no interest, it's this or that, too cumbersome, it's too rife with conflict, too subjective.
Yeah.
4 will say, yes, we have something in place, we've only needed it twice in 11 years and it works. Others will be somewhere in the middle.
And we're creating another job for 2, 3, or 4 people.
Right.
On top of the jobs we already have.
All right, so let's start with some counsel from counsel, if you will.
Okay, that sounds like a better plan.
Thank you for that. I think that gets us through the business. Next meeting, October 28th. Is there anything else that someone would like to address? No? So we got a couple, 3 things to address with Tracy in conjunction with the subcommittee meeting, which is on the 26th. That's what, Thursday again? Yeah, Thursday at 10 a.m. I assume we'll be up here.
I'll make sure.
Thank you, Diane and Tony, in advance. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
We are adjourned.